Welcome to Better Life, Better Business, your go-to podcast for how you can grow your business, double your productivity and time off, work smarter and not harder. Brought to you by local business coaching expert Christoph Nauer, CEO of Balance 6 in Walnut Creek, California.
Welcome back to another great episode of Better Life, Better Business. I am Christoph Nauer, business coach specializing in time management and the author of the Amazon bestseller From No Time to Free Time, 6 Steps to Work-Life Balance for Business Owners. We have a very special guest here with us today. Her name is Nancy Becher. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you so much, Christoph. I'm excited to be here.
Wonderful. As you know, as a faithful listener, the purpose of my podcast is to provide excellent resources, helpful tools, and tips and tricks to business owners. And that's exactly why I asked Nancy to be on our call today. So Nancy, please let us know, and the listeners, what value you bring to business owners and entrepreneurs.
Well, have you ever felt overwhelmed? Have you ever wished you've had better control of your business? Would you maybe like to learn new tools and strategies, but the gurus cost so much and they don't stand by and support you afterwards? That's me. I'm there to help you figure out what it is that are the right strategies, tools, and systems to get you up and running successfully, even if you've had major challenges like we've all had COVID issues over the last year, and people who have chronic illnesses and autoimmune diseases can't run their businesses like they used to, and they need support and guidance to figure out new ways of doing it. And that's what I help them with.
All righty. Well, so now let's dive into this a little bit more. So, because that's pretty vague right now. So what is it that you help them with? Is it marketing? It's
the systems and the processes. It's, you come to me and you say, Nancy, I need to get some sort of figured out what it is I want to do, how I want to do it. I have short-term memory issues. I don't feel good. I just don't know what to do any longer because I can't run my business the way I used to. So we sit down together and we figure out what it is that they want to do with their business. And then we figure out how they want to do it. So I'm not teaching them the marketing. I'm not teaching them the sales. I'm not teaching them those things. I'm helping them figure out what it is they need so that if we decide, well, you need marketing, okay, well, let's look at this tool. Let's look at this process. Go ahead and try out a program called Sweet Dash, try ConvertKit, all these we look at the different types of software. We look at the different processes of taking something from A to Z. Do you have a funnel? Do you have these things? And I help them implement the various systems that they need so that they don't have to work so hard any longer. They turn everything off into automations, and something that may have taken them a week to do, they can do in 2 hours, either because it's all automated, or they've hired a virtual assistant, or they figured out different ways to run their business more smoothly and effectively.
All right. Well, that sounds good. I think you mentioned something that I thought is so critically important, and that's what is it that you really want out of your business? And I think so for so many entrepreneurs and business owners, they have a hard time answering that question. And you may know that only about 3% of people have written goals for their businesses and their lives. I mean, and that's kind of scary, but when you were talking, that popped into my mind. And so how do you handle that whole idea of goal setting, with your clients, but also for yourself?
Well, that's the first thing that I do with my clients is I have a little workbook called Flight Plan. And in that flight plan, it asks a series of questions, where you stop and think about what it is you really want to do. It's almost a brain dump where you're looking at everything. You're looking at where you want to be physically in 5 years. How many hours a day do you want to be working? Do you want to be working? You really delve down into those questions. You answer them for yourself, and then we come back together and spend a couple of hours going over them together. And I will hear you say things, or I'll hear you hesitate, and we'll delve down into it. And I have a master's degree and a doctoral degree in counseling. And so I can turn those counseling skills that I have into dealing with what it is they're looking for. And then once we've actually gotten those goals, I have a part of that flight plan is my SMART goal system. And we will pick 3 to 5 SMART goals. And a SMART goal is measurable. I can never remember what they mean.
No, I know. I did a whole podcast on that alone.
I never remember what they mean, but it's a way of looking at an individual specific goal that you have. And then we take it one step further and look at what are the to-dos that you need to do to get you there. So we actually start with something and then we work backwards. So and I did this after my car accident, I did this for the first time. And I had been managing and editing a business magazine for the past 11 years. And when I did this, you don't think too deeply about it. You just let your brain and body and hand take over, and you write down the answers to these things. And when I went back and I read my answers, there was not one word in that entire document that even mentioned the magazine. And this magazine was in Barnes and Nobles. It was in a lot of the local bookstores. It was a full color glossy stock 64 to 68 page magazine that was published every month and had anywhere from 5 to 15 authors in it every month. And I mean, it was a big deal. And there was not one word. And I immediately said, close it down.
That sounded like an indicator to do something else, right?
Close it down. And I never published another issue after that. And I've not regretted it. It's really made me relieved that I didn't have to race around trying to get the authors to get their articles in and to get the publisher to print it and all of these things. It just wasn't where I wanted to be any longer, even though it was a major way for me to make money those many years ago. And so you need to do it for yourself as well as for your clients on a regular basis. I do it at least once every 6 months.
Yeah. No, and I think you hit on something here when you got to follow your heart. If your heart and your passion don't align with what you're doing, then burnout is just around the corner. Frustration is around the corner, and life is too short to dabble in those things. If you're fortunate enough that you can make your passion, skill set, your business. I always say that you don't work a day in your life.
That's right. Well, and especially when you realize that my target market, and this is true for everybody and everyone out there that's trying to live their life to the best in their business, but it's especially true for people who have chronic or autoimmune illnesses who are my ideal clients, because there's only so many hours in a day that we can work without hurting, without being in extreme pain, without being exhausted, all those different kinds of things. So if you're spending your life doing something you really don't want to do, and you're just doing it because you feel like you have to, you're wasting so much of your time and your abilities. You need to be able to figure out what's really going to be the best for you to do.
Yeah. In my book, I talk about the overarching purpose of my life is, and I think throughout the book, this is a theme that I encourage my clients to revisit and stay true to, because once you find what your purpose is, then you soar like an eagle. and that makes such a huge difference. So Nancy, what do you wish you had known when you started your business?
Oh, well, I started my business when I was 12 years old. So I've learned a lot since then. And but this iteration of my business actually started about 35 years ago. And at the time that I was starting this, there wasn't even an internet. There was AOL, and it was, you've got mail. And that was about all there was.
Yeah, I remember.
And, you couldn't go to a bookstore and look for a book on entrepreneurship. You couldn't Google it. You couldn't anything. And so to figure out all of the stuff that we're talking about, to figure out SMART goals, to figure out what it is I wanted to do, how I wanted to do it, what systems, very, very difficult and hard to figure out because you had no help. You just had to jump in and do it. Now, I still have a lot of the same questions because there's so much noise out there right now that we still don't know what's going to make for the best, success. So I think the answer to your question is I spent an awful lot of time running from this person to this person to this book to trying this thing to trying that thing, only to finally realize that what works the best for me is what I want to do. Don't follow in the footsteps of, this person out there. Don't fall into the imposter syndrome and say, I've got to do something exactly the same way as somebody else. Be yourself. Do what you want to do it how you want to do it. And that's what's going to bring people to you.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. You have to be authentic. But also it's important for me. It was very important to have influential people in my life that I could learn from. For me, like Brian Tracy, I got certified by him as a time management master a few years ago. Everybody knows about him. He's a guru in the industry. I've been following him for years. Other people like John Assaraf and Christian Michelson are just, they are experts in the industry. So I'm not trying to copy them, but I'm trying to learn from them and pick out what works best for me and for my business, And I think,
and they resound. You can feel that what they're saying has importance to you and to your business. You're not listening to everything they're saying and say, well, maybe what they're saying is not right. So let me go over and listen to this person, and then let me go and listen to this other person. And you found who makes the most sense to you and who your mind and body and everything kind of go into what it is they're saying. And you can say, well, I can take from this. I don't have to be exactly what they do, but I can learn from them. I can implement some of the things they say in a way that works for me.
Yes, absolutely right. Like for instance, the whole idea of prioritizing, and I think I'm going to ask you how to do that, but Brian Tracy talks about that, and I take his step a little bit further because I can consider taking care of yourself, the whole idea of self-care, an A task. And for the most part, he only talks about A task being the most critical task that we have to get done. He doesn't go into detail. So that's where I expand on it a little bit, But I think for you have to prioritize in your own business, but you also, I would imagine, help your clients with that. How do you handle the process? What process do you use?
Well, it goes back to the SMART goals. And if you have an overall goal for, say, the next 3 months, my overall goal for the next 3 months is to get 6 people into my mastermind. I have a mastermind. I'm opening a new chapter. I want 6 people. So, okay, that's my goal. That's my top priority. Now I look at everything that I need to do in order to get those 6 people in. And those are the to-dos that go along with it. So you've got that. You've also got everything else that goes on in your life. I've got this podcast today. I've got, so you have to have those priorities as well. And I think I try very hard, and I try to tell my clients, don't look at the things that have to get done. Look at the things that it would be nice to get done, and look at the things that you don't necessarily need to get done right away. So you've got the different piles there. And try not to get more than 3 or 4 things on your absolutely have to get done today list of goals that you need to have done. And then mark them off with a red pen when you get them done, because there's something about saying, I've accomplished this, that really makes for a positive mindset. And if you can say, I've gotten this done. And if you've only got those 3 or 4 things, you're much more likely than if you've got a list a mile long and it just doesn't seem like you've ever going to accomplish any of it. So don't overextend yourself, but you've got to really and truly figure out what it is you want. And maybe if you've got something like a friend wanted you to go out to lunch, and you didn't really want to do it, but you felt obligated, but you got this, and how are you going to get all that? You may just wind up having to say, I can't do it today, I'm sorry.
Yes.
And say yes and no, and don't feel conflicted by it.
Yeah, the famous say no, learning to say no.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I did a whole podcast on prioritizing and using the method that Brian Tracy talks about. A big one in there is the delegating,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one thing that my clients struggle with a lot. So how do you handle that yourself in your business?
I have assistants. I had an administrative assistant for over 10 years. And sadly, she just retired. And so now I'm teaching a new one, which is a little stressful. But I also know that at times it takes a lot more work to get to a point where you have less work. And so I think it's important to know the things that you are good at, know the things that you like to do, know the things you don't like to do and aren't good at and that stress you out, and find a different way to do those.
Absolutely. And I think you really hit a key point there with saying right now it's time consuming to train that new person,
Mm-hmm.
but the payoff afterwards will be huge. And I mean, I hear my clients say, I don't have time for training. And I was like, okay, well, you got to look at the big picture. If you don't make time right now, that person will never perform the way you want him or her to perform.
Correct.
So I think you hit it dead on. That's absolutely critically important. Well, before we end, let me ask you one more question. What are some people who have been most influential to you on your journey to where you are today?
Oh, I think, there's so many. And I think Napoleon Hill actually is one of them. I love everything he said. I believe in mastermind groups. I believe in having programs where we share and all of that. Mary Kay actually is another one that I have listened to and love, how she went from nothing, she and her son, and worked into this. I don't wear makeup, but I love her philosophy on running a business. And another person that, and they're not the same types of influencers that you're talking about, but they're more old stream kind of things. And the other one is actually Colonel Sanders from Kentucky Fried Chicken. He went from door to door. It was 99 no's he got with his chicken recipe before he actually got someone to say yes. And just the concept of knowing that you've got something and just not giving up. You never know what might be right around the corner. It might be there. There's always a balance in everything. You've got to know when it's time to move on, but you also have to know that, there's the ability to do something. And I truly believe that what I do is God-given, and that I'm listening to him and he tells me what to do, and I do it in his honor, and I will know if it's the right thing.
Well, you mentioned another key point here, and you're not giving up. That's the thing. All successful people who have built successful businesses, that's one thing they had in common. They all failed a gazillion times, but they never gave up,
Right.
So at this point, I would imagine our audience probably wants to figure out how to connect with you online. How can they find you, and do you have a special offer for them?
I do. In fact, let me pull up the link.
Well, we'll put that in the description later, so you can just tell us right now, but that suppose goes in the description of the video.
Okay, well, you can find me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and the freebie that I have for you is actually what I was just talking to you about with doing the SMART goal plan. And that's a really nice little booklet that allows you to create your SMART goals and put in the timelines and the due dates and the costs and all of those things to keep you on track.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us today, Nancy.
Thank you.
And sharing your expertise with our listeners.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
And many thanks to our listeners for joining us again today. If you would like to learn more about my services or get my Amazon bestseller, please be sure to visit my website, balance6.biz, balance6.biz. Until next time, have a better life and better business. This week's episode of Better Life, Better Business is brought to you by CA&C Video Productions. Since 1985, CA&C Video has been providing live streaming, event production, and analog to digital transfer services. They capture those life-changing moments, preserving your history for current and future generations. Because your history matters. Visit their website at cacvideo.com. Thank you so much for your sponsorship.
That's all for now. Thanks for listening to another episode of Better Life, Better Business with business and time management coach Christoph Nauer with Balance 6, the leading business and time management company in Northern California. Visit them at balance6.biz.